Hey guys, welcome in Mastering Angular 15 from Beginners to Advanced series. In today's lecture, we will talk about component lifecycle hooks. But first, we need to see what are lifecycle hooks. Lifecycle hooks in Angular are special methods that are invoked at various stages of a component or directive's lifecycle. Now, in Angular, we have few important lifecycle hooks: constructor, ng-on changes, ng-on init, and ng-on destroy. First, we have constructor. Constructor is invoked when Angular creates a component or directive by calling new on the class. Then we have ng-on changes. It is invoked every time there is a change in one of the input properties of the component. Then we have ng-on init. It is invoked when given component has been initialized. Then we have ng-on destroy. This method will be invoked just before Angular destroys the component, and use this hook to unsubscribe observables and detach event handlers to avoid memory leaks. Let's see this hook in our view student component, which we have already created in our previous lectures. In this component, we haven't implemented any lifecycle hook. For lifecycle hook, we need to implement its interface, and every lifecycle have its own interface. First, I'm going to implement onChanges interface. Now I must need to implement its function. For the sake of testing, I'm going to console.log a string in this function. For second lifecycle, I need to put comma in between, and then I'm going to implement ng-on init. I'm also going to implement ng-on destroy lifecycle hook. And now we must need to implement these both lifecycle hooks functions. For constructor, we don't have any interface. This is also one of the most important lifecycle hook in Angular, so I'm going to implement it too. And for the sake of testing, I'm going to add string in console.logs in all of these functions. If we see the console.log, then it implements only two functions. First function must be constructor, and second must be onInit. OnDestroy will be invoked just before the Angular destroys the component, and ng-on changes will be implemented if we have any input parameter in our component. So these are the four most important lifecycle hooks in Angular. Next, we will explore complete lifecycle hooks. As we have already discussed, constructor is our first lifecycle hook. It should only be used to initialize the class members but shouldn't do actual work. So we should use constructor to set up the dependency injection and initialization of class fields. Then we have ng-on changes, and it responds when Angular sets or reset input properties. It is called before ng-on init if the component have any input parameters. Next, we have ng-on init. It initializes the directive or component after Angular first displays the data bound properties and sets the directive or component's input properties. It is called once after the first ng-on changes. ng-on init is still called even if we don't need to invoke ng-on changes. Next, we have ng-do-check. It detects and acts upon changes that Angular can't or won't detect on its own. It is called immediately after ng-on changes on every change detection run, and immediately after ng-on init on the first run. Then we have ng after content init. It responds after Angular projects external content into the component's view, and it is called once after the first ng-do-check invoked. Next, we have ng after content checked. It responds after Angular checks the content projected into the directive or component. It is called after the ng after content init and also every subsequent ng-do-check call. Next, we have ng after view init. It responds after Angular initializes the component's views and child views or the view that contains the directive, and it is called once after the first ng after content checked is invoked. Next, we have ng after view checked. It responds after Angular checks the component's views and child views or the view that contains the directive, and it is called after the ng after view init and every subsequent ng after content checked invoked. Then at the end, we have ng-on destroy. It cleans up just before Angular destroys the directive or component. It unsubscribes observables and detach event handlers to avoid the memory leaks, and it is called immediately before the Angular destroys the directive or component. So this was the today's lecture. Hope you understand it. If you have any question or query, you can ask in comments. But if this lecture is helpful for you, then guys, please like, subscribe and share my channel. Thanks for watching.